Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan "Press On" has solved and will always solve the problems of the human race. Calvin Coolidge. My friends, 10 to 15 minutes a day, that is all we ask. Patreon members, get ready. Tomorrow you will have the second installment of what am I calling this? It's the weekly digest of cryptocurrency. It will include, and for those of you who are interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, just another one of the things we put out in addition to the weekly 20 weekly vertical crossovers up and down. We'll be reviewing things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, things like BTO, which is a Bitcoin strategy ETF. It is a Bitcoin futures ETF. There's another one, BTF. There's another one, XBTF. You also have things like the global blockchain and Bitcoin strategy ETF. This is a really cool one. BITW, it's the Bitcoin 10 crypto index. It's a weighted index of the top 10 cryptocurrencies, and you can see the list of things. We'll be going over those and talking about them. I don't see many people charting cryptocurrencies in the marketplace. You guys got me to start doing it originally with, of course, the New York Stock Exchange Bitcoin Index. And you know what we learned is that you can actually chart Bitcoin. And it works pretty darn well. In fact, this huge rundown that we have seen, you would have gotten yourself out of it if you were looking at Bitcoin back when we had the 2-day crossover going down, at least then, before, of course, we had the weekly vertical crossover going down. But the 2-day would have taken you out right at the prior top. And again, you would have gotten in on the weekly vertical crossover going up back at about the $30-something thousand mark. And of course, ridden it up potentially. I mean, you could have ridden it all the way up to 68,000, but again, don't expect you to capture all of that, but there's a lot of money between about 39,000 and 68,000 to catch there. And of course, to jump out when it starts to roll over going down. And of course, waiting for it to bottom out. Who knows where it will bottom out? Could bottom out at 30-something thousand or even lower. That, of course, is a great buy point. Now, we say all this with the caveat of we're not a stock calling service. We're not a Bitcoin calling service. We're an education firm. We want you to be practice trading these things. But again, you learn by practicing, by doing, by buying these things in your practice trading account. And of course, if you use TC2000, which is the stock charting platform you see here, all of these things are available to you in addition to paper trading, where you can do that right there online at TC2000. And then, of course, as you start getting good, you can come in and do a little bit of fractional trading. That is $100 or less, something like that, and just see how good you can actually do. That goes not only for the cryptocurrencies, but it goes for the charts we look at every day. We're going to jump in first to the S&P 500. In fact, on our charts today, everything is down. From the S&P, the NASDAQ 100, 20-year bonds, gold, and Bitcoin, we see, again, we talked about this when we started seeing all these crossovers happening, deleveraging potentially taking place. Weekly vertical crossover started back at the beginning of December. Now, how do we look for this week? Well, you can tell the Heikin-Ashi candlestick shows a green spinning top, some movement on the bottom, some movement on the top, not hitting the prior highs that we saw. But what do we see happening? Derivative oscillator accelerating in its down move, price percent oscillator slowly pulling away from the red signal line. Now we look at the 2-day, and of course, we had that prior 2-day candle end on Friday, so this one has completed. What do we have? We had 4 days of up movement, Now again, that's slowing. And what's happening? Well, we have a red open box spinning top, almost a doji, indecision tending down. Price percent oscillator pulling away from the red signal line. Derivative oscillators negative and still losing downward momentum. Look at this half-day chart. You can see where things hit up, peaked, slid sideways, and slowly have started devolving. Price closing right below that weekly trend line and crossing over, going down on the half-day chart. Now, we put the least emphasis in our charts on the half-day. Why? Because it's the smallest time period. Bigger waves, bigger movement, more energy. And what do we see with the weekly? Of course, slowly pulling away from the red signal line. Maybe that deleveraging is underway, down 0.69%. Look at the NASDAQ 100. Now, what does that represent? That's the big technology stocks. What are they doing? Well, they are slowing down also. We had that little bit unexpected weekly vertical crossover back in early December. Why did that happen? Because we had a huge move down that Friday, the 3rd of December. Then things sort of slid sideways, still staying below. Looked like it was trying to cross over a little bit at the end of the week, and then what happened? Started pulling away. We saw a green spinning top and now a doji on the weekly as it is forming. Prices right there at the 2-day and the weekly trend line. Price percent oscillator slowly pulling away from the red signal line. Derivative oscillator heading down. Now, anything's at play here. A lot of big good news comes out from the government. If the market wants to pull itself up, it of course can. You're not having these huge drops in the price percent oscillator. So there's a lot of iffiness in there. However, the overall mood is down. Look at the 2-day. It's been negative since it crossed over, going down back on the 30th of November. And it has stayed that way. It got flat at one point. Now it's pulling away from the red signal line. Derivative oscillator gaining downward momentum. Red spinning top. This latest 2-day candle. We see prices below that weekly trend line, above the prior 2-day. Look at the half-day. Way down in the morning, gaining a little bit back in the afternoon. Price percent oscillator really spiking down in the morning. Lost a little bit of that. Derivative oscillator still gaining lots of downward momentum. That crossover causes us to redraw our trend line. That's how easy it is to draw trend lines with TC2000. Let's see, it was at a $25 off coupon is available in the show notes when you are ready to get serious and subscribe at TC2000, the only charting platform that I would recommend. What do we see going on with, and one thing I have asked, if you guys would send your emails in, those of you who subscribe to TC2000, ask for them to start charting all of the top 10 cryptocurrencies. Right now, about the only thing I can chart, thanks to Grayscale, is Grayscale Bitcoin and Grayscale Ethereum. I would love to have all of, and I've asked Chris Warden, I sent him a text message a couple of days ago. All of you, if you could email the team there at Warden Brothers, just look under how to contact and contact them and say, please start charting the top 10 cryptocurrencies. I think that will behoove us quite well in the future. And if all of us write that, if they get several hundred requests, I have a good feeling they would probably start doing that. They can use one of the trading exchanges to get that information to actually start charting it for us. We need that. That's going to help us out a lot in the future. Now, what do we see on 20-year bonds? Down for the day, 0.24%. What do we see happening as far as the weekly goes? Red spinning top, almost a doji, telling us lots of indecision. Price percent oscillator still moving up a little bit. Derivative oscillator green, but losing momentum. What do we see on the 2-day? This latest 2-day candle, green spinning top, that is indecision, tending up after to 4 days of down movement. That price percent oscillator trying to move up. Derivative oscillator still losing momentum. So again, the overall, it's shaky when it comes to bonds, but they're trying to head up. And again, they weren't down much for the day. Price percent oscillator on the half day still not crossed over. Derivative oscillator did cross over in the afternoon, down in the morning, trying to gain a little bit back in the afternoon, but still down for the day. That is where we are when it comes to 20-year U.S. government bonds. Let's go to gold. Down 0.93%. I tell you, gold, look at this. It's moving more and more toward a weekly vertical crossover going down. After we had that last vertical crossover, we had 3 weeks to capture the gains. Worked out for me. I did a nice trade there, and it behooved me quite well. I was very, very happy with that and did not stay in to get hammered by this down move that has been going on 4 weeks with enough down energy to cross over going down. People might say, wait a minute, Tom, how are stocks going down and bonds going down and gold going down and Bitcoin going down? Why is all that happening at once? Isn't one of those places a safe haven? I think I mentioned this earlier in the week, and I want you guys to hear this. When there are systemic drops in the market, when there's massive deleveraging, when the market's topped out and starts to roll over, you'll many times, like the Bitcoin crash, remember that? When that occurred, what happened was people had a lot of margin calls they had to cover. So what do? They sell everything to make those margin calls. And that causes everything to move down. Now, once those margin calls are cleared out and all the dead wood is gone, that is when you will see things recover, like bonds, like gold, maybe Bitcoin. I don't know. Don't know how long it will take for it to recover. But when people then start putting their money, particularly in inflationary times, into other things, maybe we'll see gold take off. Well, that's not happening right now. And those who can read a chart, you don't have to be a friggin' genius to see what's going on. Heading down. Price percent oscillator turned negative, or going negative. Derivative oscillator going negative. Now, we don't call that until Friday, but we can see it trying to develop. Red spinning top, we can see how things developed. Things, moved down, then tried to gain a little energy, and now are losing that. Price percent oscillator heading down. Derivative oscillator still negative, but losing some downward momentum. What do we see on the half day? Drop in the morning, drop in the afternoon. Not quite as much. No crossover yet. Looks like the derivative oscillator, well, it's just sort of gone away at this point, so about flat. Lastly, we go to Bitcoin. Down again for the day, 0.91%. I will tell you that Bitcoin Grayscale, the Grayscale Bitcoin, now it is not an ETF, it is a trust. They own Bitcoin, and basically when you buy in, they are following the value of Bitcoin, but they do it with their ownership through their trust. It was up some for the day, 3.64%, but our New York Stock Exchange Bitcoin Index, and again, these indexes track different exchanges, different ways of adding all this up. It was actually down for the day. Now, the overall, when you start looking at these charts, what do you see? Even if Bitcoin was up for the day on Grayscale, what do you see when you look at that chart? What do you see when you look at the chart for the New York Stock Exchange Bitcoin? Don't get yourself confused. What you see happening is lots of downward pressure. And look, it happens to be just the same number of weeks, very similar candles. Isn't that amazing as I flip back and forth for you? So the pressure in cryptocurrencies has been down for the last couple of weeks, actually going on about 4 weeks. We had our weekly vertical crossover this last week, but of course we had our 2-day recross going down back on the 16th. That was Monday the 15th, Tuesday the 16th of November. So again, we saw this when it first started ginning up and down for the day. Price percent oscillator heading down, derivative oscillator gaining downward momentum. So pay attention to what you see on the screen. Look at the candles. You've got this latest trend line, quite a nifty trend line. Price percent oscillator going down. Look at that derivative oscillator, about flat, negative and flat. And of course, what do we see on the half day? I mean, again, things just tracking down, tracking down. You can see where it slowed a little bit in that downward momentum that was steeper, has slowed a little bit, but again, still down. Massive downward pressure on the crypto space. Not a time to be buying it, is it? Not a time to be buying it for your virtual trading account. I always add those words in there because we are not a stock calling service. We're not a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency charting service. We are an education firm. Want you to learn how to chart this on your own, because you know what, in the end, who cares the most for your money? Who's going to be the most knowledgeable person with it? I think it ought to be you. And you probably think the same if you are here trying to gain charting knowledge. God bless, my friends. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters. You want to support what we do and get all these great benefits? Check out our Patreon page. God bless.